Good morning. Today we are going to start with the topic sale by non-owners. The general rule is what? No one can give what he has not. Means when a person is not having a title, then he cannot transfer the title. Now this rule or this principle is based upon one Latin maxim, and that is nemo dat qui non habet. I'll repeat. Nemo dat qui non habet means what? No one can give what he has not. Means when a person is a owner, then only he can transfer the ownership. If he is a non-owner, if he is not an owner, and if he sells the goods, he can't transfer the ownership. If you purchase goods from the thief is not having good title. The thief is not having any title, he is not the owner. So if you purchase goods from the thief is not having ownership, so he can't transfer ownership to you of those goods, though you pay. So you will not be an owner. So for transferring of ownership in the goods, who has to sell? The owner has to sell. See, here it is clearly mentioned, if the seller has no title to the goods, the buyer does not acquire any, although he may have acted honestly and may have paid value for the goods. This protects the owner of the good. This principle protects the owner of the good, because if some unauthorized person sells also, the buyer will not get the title, the buyer will not be the owner, so the owner remains, the seller is the owner himself. The ownership is with the seller. So this principle is protecting the true seller, or you can say the true owner. Okay. Now sale by non-owners. The topic was sale by non-owners. And what is the general rule? Only ownership can be passed by owner only, not non-owner. See, this principle is what? Only owners have to sell. Then only ownership passes to the buyer. Now this is a general rule. Means owner sells, ownership passes to the buyer. This is the general rule. But to this general rule we are having certain exceptions. And what are the exceptions? Means a person who is not the owner, he is going to sell. He is a non-owner. He is going to sell, but the buyer will get the good title. I'll repeat again. The general rule is ownership passes by the owner only. Ownership passes to the buyer only by the owner. Means if the seller is the owner, then only ownership passes to the buyer. If the seller is not the owner, then the buyer will not become owner. But there are some exceptions. Now there are certain exceptions, means what? Here the seller will not be the owner. He is a non-owner, but he will create better title in the buyer. Means the buyer will become the owner. This is the exception to the general rule. Okay. Now there are many exceptions. Take an example like sale by mercantile agent. In the topic of mercantile agent, we have seen a agent called as a factor. This factor, what he does, he takes the possession of the goods and he sells the goods on behalf of the principal. The agent is not the owner, but the buyer gets good title. The ownership passes from the principal to the buyer by the sale done by whom? By the agent. So sale by mercantile agent is one of the exception. The next is sale by one of several joint owners. Many owners are there, joint owners are there. Then one of the joint owner who is having possession of the goods with the consent of all the other owners can sell. He alone is selling, but the whole ownership passes to the buyer. Okay. So here also he is not a complete owner, because many other are there. But he is having possession. So a joint owner who is having possession of the goods with the consent of the other owners can sell, and full ownership passes to the buyer. This is the second exception. The third exception is sale by person in possession under a voidable contract. Now what is voidable contract? Where there is an option, where the person can cancel the contract or he can continue in the contract. We have seen in the topic of contract free consent. Okay. So when the consent is not free, at that time voidable title is being created. See, when the seller of goods has obtained their possession under a voidable contract, means the seller's title is not clear, it is voidable. but the contract has not been cancelled by the original owner. Means the seller is having possession under voidable title, maybe under fraud, maybe under undue influence and all. So his title is not clear, and yet the original owner has not cancelled the contract. He is having an option to cancel it, but he is not cancelling it. Till then, what happens? The seller who is having voidable title, what he can do? He can sell the goods to the buyer, and the buyer is purchasing in good faith without knowledge of all these things. Then the buyer will get good title. Buyer will become the owner. The buyer acquires a good title to the goods provided he buys them in good faith and without notice of the seller's defective title. So under voidable contract also, when the seller sells, his title is not clear, it is voidable, but the buyer gets ownership. Okay. The next exception is what? Sale by seller in possession after sale. After sale, S-A-L-E. Seller is not the owner. I'll repeat again. Sale by seller in possession after sale. Means the seller has sold the goods, but he is having possession of the goods. He is waiting for the buyer to take the possession, because now the possession is of the seller, but the ownership is of the buyer. But the goods are in seller's possession. For how many days he is going to wait for the buyer? The buyer had told him that he'll come and take the possession, and maybe the buyer has not come. So the seller can sell. And when the seller sells, the new buyer gets good title. He will take the possession also. And the first buyer, though he is a owner, whenever he comes back, he can claim for the price and just keep quiet, because the ownership has already passed. Because law is telling sale by seller in possession after sale is an exception to the general rule that only owners have to sell. Okay, here the seller is not the owner, the buyer is the owner, but the seller is selling it because he is having possession, because he was waiting for the buyer for the long time, but the buyer didn't come, so he sold. Okay, so the new buyer will get the clear title. This is another exception. Another one is sale by buyer in possession after having bought or agreed to buy the goods. Means here what has happened? Sell has taken place. S-E-L-L. Sell has taken place, but the buyer has taken the possession. It means the goods are with buyer's possession, but yet the buyer is not the owner. The seller is the owner. Okay. Though the buyer is not the owner, the buyer sells, then the person who purchases from the buyer, he will get good title. Take an example here of a dealer. Those people are dealer, they are not the owner. But whenever they sell the goods, the buyer gets a good title. Okay, those dealers come under this exception, sale by buyer in possession after having bought or agreed to buy the goods. Okay. Now the next exception is what? Sale by unpaid seller. This as a separate topic we are going to see in another video. But just I will tell, when an unpaid seller is there, the price is not paid to the seller. For how many days the seller has to wait, isn't it? So law gives him the right that inform to the buyer that if you don't pay the money in a particular time, then he will sell. He will wait for that period, and the unpaid seller, he will sell the goods, and the new buyer will get clear title. Okay. Now another exceptions are in different laws, like in contract. Under quasi contract we have seen finder of goods. The finder of goods is not the owner, but he is like the owner for the whole world. Therefore when any person comes, he will not give the goods, but when the owner comes, he has to give back. But if the owner rejects to give his reward, or the amount which he has spent for the protection of the goods which he has found, if the owner does not pay to him, what the finder of goods can do? He will sell the goods, and the new buyer will get, or the buyer, not a new but a buyer, will get a good title. So the finder of goods under Indian Contract Act is having right to sell, and the ownership passes. Similarly, pledgee also or pawnee also under Indian Contract Act can sell, because his debt is not paid. He is having the goods for security for the loan, and if the amount is not paid to him, the debt is not repaid, then he can sell the goods and the buyer will get a good title. These all are exceptions to the general rule that only owners can sell. Non-owners cannot sell. In this exception we have seen non-owners can also sell, and a clear title the buyer will get. Okay. Today we have completed the topic sale by non-owners. In the next video we will discuss another topic. Okay. Bye bye. See you.